All right, so today while I was on the treadmill, this video got recommended to me. And it's basically one of my videos, right? Somewhere Claire, also Claire on the Road, is always talking about how she's staying positive while she's living in a car. And she had to move out of her old apartment because of the same reason that I had to. I had roaches climbing on me at night, eating my food in the fridge, getting into the freezer, and coming out of the microwave after I'd finished cooking something. And I couldn't believe it that there are people out there. And this is something that I got from a video before her. Roaches are a symbol of poverty. If everywhere you go, there are roaches, that means that there's no way of getting out of it. And so everything she said in this video, you guys have heard in my videos 100 times. But she's experiencing it in real time. She used to work at a warehouse. She's worked at a Starbucks after graduating college. And she's had probably every crummy job that I've had. And she's an 80s baby. I thought she was much younger than that. Without further ado, let's get into today's talking points. I took these talking points, I ripped off her script, I stuck into ChatGPT, and I was very curious as to what it made for us to have to talk about today. So let's see. Let's look at our introductory monologue. They told us to follow the rules, go to college, get a job, buy a house, and we have a good life. But here I am, 25, divorced, no kids, no house, no pension, no white picket fence, just a van parked behind a Walmart and a head full of questions. Turns out the American dream didn't die. It just got evicted and found cheaper rent in the back of a parking lot. And honestly, that might be the most honest version of the dream I've had in decades. This morning, I walked out to take my old gaming computer, the Cabby Lake. It finally had been sitting in my closet for years now. And I had to take it and put it into the trash can because I just couldn't stand looking at it anymore. When you have a 7th generation i7 processor sitting there just getting older, has almost practically no value. I'm sure if I stripped the power supply, maybe the water cooler for the CPU, an old, what is it, a GTX 950. Yeah, it was a good machine for back in the day, but I had to take it out to pasture, so I just put it next to the dumpster. Maybe someone will find it and give it a new home. But as I was walking there was a homeless woman. The one that I've seen wandering around Mill Avenue ever since she got evicted. She was standing right in front of my apartment, and she was looking up at me as I was coming up the stairs. And I passed her shopping cart out here in front of my apartment, and I was wondering, it's like, why is there a homeless shopping cart 20 feet from my front door? And it was her. And she just stood out there, not in the shade, just by the side of the building, just rambling to herself. And she said hello to me, and then she apologized for talking to herself. But I think that's where we're all heading. She got evicted from my old apartment complex, is it 2 or 3 years ago? And she's never left Mill Avenue. She just wanders up and down. I've seen the police talk to her dozens of times. I've seen people stop, get out of their cars, walk over and start talking to her. And she started out with like 8 shopping carts. I think she moved her entire house into shopping carts. But then slowly she just kept getting them taken away, and she kept rebuilding it and rebuilding until she only has one now. But I think that's the American dream right there. Living out of a shopping cart. All right. Talking point number 1. The promise of college, career, marriage, and homeownership no longer apply to most under 40. Rising rent, stagnant wages, unaffordable housing have made the dream unattainable, not by laziness, but by design. Today's reality is survival, not success, and pretending otherwise just gaslights an entire generation. This is often a conversation that I've had with my Gen Z workers over the past few years, is that they wonder, and every one of them has had this attitude. It's like, when is my career going to take off? And I just look at them and I'm like, what are you doing? If you want a career, go somewhere where you can get a career. Stop spinning your wheels and go do it. But unfortunately, if they're not living at home, they're on their way home. And every one of them has had the same problem. They can't get a credit card, they can't build credit because no bank in their right mind is going to give credit to someone who spends 80 to 90% of their monthly income on rent. 80 to 90%. And I know this for a fact because that used to be me when I worked at Walmart. I rented a room that cost nearly $1,000 a month in today's money, and there was just no way. I ate hot dogs every day for years because of how bad the minimum wage is. And it's not like it's getting any better. And gaslighting people into believing that, oh, you just have to hold on. Remember to save all your money. Remember that it's up to you to be able to create the dream. But the reality is that most people keep going to work and just barely make it to that next paycheck. Every week, they go to the same job. And if it's not Pound Town, it's not the Death Star, if it's not Evil Corp, well, then you're probably on unemployment, and that's not going to save you either because unemployment doesn't take into consideration that the average apartment is now, at least in this area, is $2,300 a month. Unemployment offers you $200 a week. What are you going to do with that? And it's intentional. The last time I went to the food stamp office with my friend, which is 2 weeks ago, I was sitting there with her looking at the hundreds of people that were walking into the food stamp office. And I told her, this place is designed to be inefficient, to force people to work, to force people to work any job, because coming here is nearly pointless. I would say 60% of the offices there of the people who should have been working there were empty. And the people that were there, oh my gosh, it was awful. She stood out like a sore thumb among these people. And they probably were wondering why she wasn't doing better at life. And I think most people are saying the same thing. Remember that video I made with the weird rotisserie chicken thumbnail? That's more and more of a reality. The Costco rotisserie chicken is now the symbol of the middle class because they can't afford food. Not at these prices. I just got back from going to Walmart and I spent $50 for rice, chicken, some tuna fish, and some, what was it? Some Vienna sausages, a couple of salads, and what was one other thing I got? Beef jerky. $50. I couldn't believe it either. I looked at the cashier. Is this for real? She didn't even talk. I looked at I must have passed 10 to 20 Walmart employees, and not one of them said hello. Not one of them made eye contact. Not one of them looked like they were even alive. I could have shaken my hand right in front of their eyes, and they just would have pretended that they were in a daze. And I know this for a fact because I used to have that. I used to look at my coworkers and wonder, how long is this one going to last before it's too much for them? Because those depressing minimum wage jobs, well, someone's got to do them. Talking point number 2. Trickle-down economics never worked. The wealth didn't trickle, it vacuumed upward. Giant corporations like Walmart, McDonald's pay workers so little that taxpayers subsidize their survival through food stamps and Medicaid. These so-called job creators created a labor trap where even full-time workers live in poverty. Well, I'll tell you guys this much. As a former Walmart worker, seeing that, I think it was about 10 years ago, that Walmart was having a food drive for its own employees. Look it up on Google. That's how terrible they are as a company. A food drive for the workers, food drives for people in school, food drives for people who need food. And that's something that these places, um, these food banks and churches, they rely on donations from the middle class, people who have a surplus of resources. These are the people showing up at these places for free food now. And it's if they're not there, if the church can't give, then who gives? Uncle Sam isn't going to give you money for not working. He thinks that you should be working 3 jobs, that the job creators are doing great with record profits because you don't have any money. Do you know where record profits come from? Directly from poor people. Who shops at Walmart? Poor people. Who works at Walmart? Poor people. It's kind of seems like a scam, doesn't it? It is, because working isn't worth it anymore. When your employer, and again, I bring this up all the time. If you're a small business owner, and again, landscaping company is the perfect example for this. If you're a small business owner and you want your company to grow to $1 million in the first year, you're going to have to crush a lot of grapes. These people will never live in reality to understand that the person you hired has no motivation, has a low desire life. You're talking a person that isn't having sex, a person that isn't going out, a person that's living with their parents, a person that's 35 years old and doesn't have a car. These are your employees. What possible reason could an employee that's that beaten down have to take any active interest in a low paying job? In fact, it's almost like they're robots. Like if you ever have to be around minimum wage workers, they are the epitome of what it is to be an NPC. They don't really have anything to say. Their lives are simple, repetitive, and extremely difficult. They spend most of their time outside of work working another job. The recreation of the poor, the leisure of the poor, is the second and third job. I mean, luckily for me this weekend, I didn't have to work. I get to spend all weekend just kind of running around trying to get everything done, rearrange my house so it's more efficient. I literally moved into this apartment and threw everything in the closet and didn't think about layout at all. Today, my house it's still cluttered. There's still lumps. There's still my Xbox sitting there on the coffee table. My PlayStation sitting there. Um, my Nintendo Switch is sitting at the base of my TV stand. And I swapped out again. I didn't like where I have my TV in my bedroom. I was using it as a second monitor for my going to sleep computer because I don't like being out here in the living room when I don't have to be working. So this is my working desk, and that's my evening desk where I don't have access to all the rendering power of the Alienware. So I like to be over there, but that second monitor that TV that I was using was way too big. It's like looking up at it, and I decided that I was going to put it on a stand in my bedroom. So I had to rearrange everything this morning. So I got back from the gym right before 9 o'clock. I needed to get a haircut. So in the hour between 9 and 10, in which I was waiting for the haircut place to open, I got as busy as I've ever been since I moved in here. Started moving all the bookshelves, started moving the TV, tried to rearrange my closet because I didn't want my bike in my bedroom and I didn't want it in the living room. That was the epitome of being poor at my last apartment. Everything I owned had to be right next to my bed. And I hated that. I truly despised having so little room that I couldn't move around. So today I consolidated a bunch of things. Like I said, I threw away my old computer because a giant tower. It was a Shogun, it was a Bit Phoenix Shogun tower, and it was enormous. It looked like a small refrigerator, and it weighed a ton. It must have weighed 50 pounds. Anyhow, it was a great case for back in the day, but it was time to bury the old girl. All right, let's see. Let's move into our talking point number 3. Van life isn't a TikTok trend. It's an economic adaptation for people fleeing burnout, rent hikes, and soul-killing jobs. New dreams are being born. Landowners, new dreams are being born. Landowners, homesteading, creative freedom, and minimalism. Rejecting the traditional dream isn't a failure, it's realism. And in that realism, people are finding freedom. I beg to differ. If you're having to give up your crummy apartment to live in your car or on the street, that's not freedom. That's savage, corporate, evil deeds. Because if they're not willing to pay you a living wage, and remember, this is why I keep bringing this up. There is no way you're going to buy a home unless you're making $150,000 or more. It's nearly impossible. 10% down on let's say a medium crummy house, which is going to run you here in Arizona between $400,000 and $600,000. Do you really have $60,000 just sitting around in your bank account so you can make a down payment on a house that you may end up losing to the bank after losing your job? No, you don't. That's intentional. They don't want people living in homes anymore because if they did, it would be affordable. They don't want people driving good cars anymore. They want you driving that 20-year-old Honda Civic that's about to break down because they don't want to give you a car for a loan for a brand new car. You're not worth it. You can't get a credit card because you're not worth it. They give credit to the people that can realistically not default on those loans. That's why the predatory lending by the colleges, universities, any teaching institution across the country is ridiculous. You know the chances of those people actually getting careers in those fields are very small. In fact, Claire somewhere goes into this. She got a degree, went straight into work in the service industry, went back to school for a master's degree and realized this isn't a good idea. It's not a good idea. Unless you're going to school to become some sort of specialized trade, it's not worth it to go to school. In fact, I've been trying to tell my friend that even though she got into medical school, if she doesn't finish medical school, she's just going to add on to the already staggering amount of undergrad student loan debt she has. She has $50,000 worth of student loan debt undergrad. Imagine adding another $50,000+ of student loan debt on top of that, like what I have. And she just doesn't understand because she told me the other day, I have to do a job that I'm passionate about. And I was sitting at my desk Monday morning and I asked one of the office workers, if she was ready for me to come and help her with something. And so I asked her, it's like, are you here today? And she says, my body is here, but my soul is dead. And I'm like, oh, really? So the soul suck 3000 got you, huh? And she just laughed. And I didn't hear back from her all day. I've been trying to help this lady for like the last 3 weeks, and it just hasn't happened because some people are just that busy at work. Anyhow, let's get into our closing monologue here. So, no, I'm not a failure. I'm just living in a country where survival requires rebellion. If the system won't change, then the dream has to. And maybe that dream isn't about climbing the ladder anymore. Maybe it's about walking away from it entirely. Because even if my home has wheels and my bathroom is a Planet Fitness, at least the life I'm building is finally mine. The freedom to be homeless? Is this where we're at? The freedom to believe that you're not free, I have no idea. Like, I watched the episode of Claire on the Road where she was moving out of her house and moving into her car full time. And I thought to myself, this isn't going to end well. I mean, it makes great for YouTubing. She's nearly at 20,000 subscribers. I'm not going to criticize her cinematic views on what she makes. I find the extreme cuts, editing to be seizure inducing, but that's just me. I'm just a podcaster. But conditions, when she described the conditions at her warehouse in that video, especially the waves part, the end, towards the end of that video, when she was describing the warehouse that she worked at, as waves, as shelves coming in and out, like waves crushing her in and out. I don't know how you could continue to work when your life is just, you're not even a human being at that point. Warehouse workers and workers in general, it's like we've become unwilling machines in a system that wants to give us as few resources as humanly possible and expects for us not only to accept it, but somehow be happy while owning nothing. Because remember, you will be happy. You will own nothing and be happy. And that's where we're at in this country. When even an apartment is something that many people are failing at. This morning, I went to the dumpster on the other side of the apartment complex, and I saw every single thing that person owned was in that dumpster this morning. Their bed, their furniture, their clothes, their kitchen stuff, their living room, their couch. Everything was by the dumpster. You know why that is? Because they're being evicted. They don't have the money for a storage shed, and they don't plan on being able to just move. In fact, this morning, Blue sent me a picture of the bedroom she just built, and she's like, "You can come stay here, but it's like making a deal with the devil. You can come and live here, but guess what, millennial Steam? You're gonna have to work for it. Yeah, you're gonna have to work for it. And booty bucks, people, booty bucks." So, anyhow, hopefully, millennial Steam won't have to pay for his rent in booty bucks, but the offer is there for whatever that means.